Top of the morning, y'all. We're gonna go right back into Grow Rich with Peace of Mind with Napoleon Hill. Let's get to it. The dramatic story of Arnold Reed. Arnold Reed is another insurance executive whose life story and its relation to the science of personal achievement parallels that of W. Clement Stone. In many respects, his story, as it related to the success philosophy, is more dramatic than the Stone story. Sorry about that. Mr. Reed was a top-ranking life insurance salesman with a record of sales production seldom equaled by anyone in this field. Mr. Reed's sales started at around $1 million annually and pyramided upward far beyond this amount. He was associated with an insurance company headed by a man whom he regarded as his personal friend. Unfortunately, or was it, Arnold had not read carefully the fine print of his contract with the company, for he learned later that it contained a clause which deprived him of his renewal premium commissions. The one factor in the insurance salesman work which gives him his greatest incentive to do a good job. This discovery shocked Arnold so severely that he went home and went to bed, refusing to eat or to communicate with his friends. Doctors were called in to diagnose his ailment, but not one of them could find anything wrong with him physically. It was not his body that was sick, it was his soul. For the shock he had experienced through the perfidy of his friend had cut the line of communication between him and the source of inspiration which had made him a great life insurance salesman. That source which alone can make men truly great. Slowly but surely, Arnold Reed was dying. His ailment was one that no doctor could cure. The doctors who had attended him knew this and frankly admitted they could offer no hope. Then a miracle happened. A friend of Arnold's who had long been a student of my success philosophy visited Arnold and presented him with a Think and Grow Rich. Here's a book, he told Arnold, which has worked wonders for me, and I want you to read it. Arnold took the book, threw it on the bed beside him, and turned away without comment. Hours later, he picked up the book, opened it, and lo, something in it caught his eye, and he read it through. Then he read it again and again, and on the third time around, he felt the surge of power which he readily recognized as one which could bring him out of the dungeon of despair into which he had fallen. He got out of his bed and began to write letters to his friends, who knew of his record as a life insurance salesman, offering them an opportunity to join him with an organ. Let's do that over, y'all. He got out of bed and began to write letters to his friends, who knew of his record as a life insurance salesman, offering them an opportunity to join with him in organizing a life insurance company under the name of Great Commonwealth Life Insurance Company. His friends responded quickly and generously. The amount of money needed was oversubscribed, and much of it had to be returned to the senders. All of this took place about the time I was beginning my alliance with W. Clement Stone. Now, some 12 years later, the Great Commonwealth Life Insurance Company is one of the most successful in its field, with a gross premium income of over $9 million in 1966 and rapidly increasing toward a new goal, which Arnold Reed has set at $1 billion annually. The company is operating in a major portion of the United States and it has a sales organization of over 400 dedicated men and women who have tuned in and drawn upon the mysterious power that brought Arnold Reed out of the shadows of death. and they are doing a job that is without parallel in the insurance company. The Great Commonwealth Life Insurance Company conducts schools in many parts of the country in which new recruits to its sales force are trained. The first thing each trainee receives is a copy of Think and Grow Rich and a briefing on what this book has done for Arnold Reed and the company. The last time I spoke to the sales organization of the Great Commonwealth, Arnold Reed marched into the platform holding me by the arm. He held up a copy of Think and Grow Rich as he said, "My friends, if it had not been for this book and my dear friend here on my left, there would not have been no Great Commonwealth Life Insurance Company, and I would now be 6 feet under the ground." It was the shortest and the most dramatic introduction I had ever experienced, and it filled me so deeply with emotion that I could hardly begin my speech. Arnold Reed is truly great leader of men, as evidenced by the phenomenal record he has established with Great Commonwealth. The main secret of his leadership is his belief in what he is doing and his sincerity in his relationship with his associates. Two qualities without which no man may become a great leader at any level of life. A success conscious mind functions rapidly and effectively. In my hundreds of interviews with men who had made fortunes, I noticed how well their minds were focused on success. Some of these men were well educated. Some, for example, Henry Ford, were notably uninformed in some areas of school learning. It, it never was the formal education or the lack of it which gave these men the power to use their minds with such drive and effect. Nor was it unusual intelligence. What was it then, which impelled their minds to seize upon great goals, then winnow all the circumstances of life and make use of what could help them achieve their ambitions? It was success consciousness. First, you must know your own mind. Then you find success consciousness. When Henry Ford mastered the art of making a good, inexpensive automobile, he still went on using his success consciousness. He had to make sure his cars were well distributed and their sale pushed in every part of the country. For this, he needed capital. The bankers had capital to lend, but he did not want outside financial interests to take hold of his company. Ford's truly efficient mind showed him the way to get capital he needed, even while he built up his distributing organization. First, he allotted his entire output of automobiles only to distributors who held the Ford franchise. Then he made it clear that each distributor must accept a fixed quota of cars, advancing in a cash, advancing in advancing in cash a percentage of the purchase price before the cars were delivered. This plan made every distributor practically a partner in the Ford business, yet it did not affect Mr. Ford's control of the business. Again, without affecting his control, it provided him with the necessary operating capital. Moreover, it provided his dealers with a very definite incentive towards finding a buyer for every car. Actually, the same incentive they would have if they had been operating their own independent businesses. I have heard it that this plan worked a hardship on one of the Ford distributors, having known some dealers since before the Model T car. However, and having looked at today's record, I can say that most Ford dealers are noteworthy for their success. Two bicycle mechanics, Orville and Wilbur Wright, gave the world its first successful airplane. What kept their minds clicking caused them first to build the world's first wind tunnel, caused them to find a secret of wingtip control, which nobody else had thought of. What caused them to surmount limitations of material and of power which still make that first flight look impossible? First, they took control of their own minds and their own lives. Then they were guided by the success consciousness which always follows. Is today's world different? Only in some details. Take such a device as a memory core, a tiny magnetic gadget which operates by the thousands in many modern computers. The Wright brothers did not know of such things, nor did Henry Ford or Andrew Carnegie or Thomas Edison. A young man named Mervyn Michelson in 1955 looked at the rapidly drawing computer age and saw what every age offers, a need and a way to fill it. He started to manufacture memory cores in his basement. His first investment in tools and supplies came to $7.21. His first employees were friends and neighboring housewives who pitched in. Today, not yet 40, Mr. Michelson still makes memory cores. He is president and a 75% owner of a $16 million company, million a year company, and the company's stock he holds is worth about 47 million. Can success consciousness be instilled into a mind already filled with a record of failure? When you come to know your own mind and live your own life, you can wipe out a record of failure just as surely as you can erase the message on a tape recorder, leaving a wonderfully receptive tape or mind to receive new and better impressions. Some people have been able to do this for themselves. Others need help. I well remember a man I helped to find himself. As you will see, I got him started, and once he knew where he was going, he did the rest. He was a dead broke man just out of the army. I believe he used the army as a refuge, but eventually he was back in civilian clothes looking for a job. The mere mention of hard times seemed to be enough to flatten him. He was shabby. He was hungry. He was willing to settle for crumbs if he only could get them. He came to see me about finding work. At the outset, he announced, "All I want is a place to sleep and enough to eat." A place to sleep and enough to eat in a world that thrives with riches? Something prompted me to ask, why settle for a meal ticket? How would you like to become a millionaire? He looked at me with glassy eyes, swaying. Please don't joke with me. I assure you I'm serious. Every man has some kind of assets, and every man can turn his assets into $1 million or many millions if he uses them correctly. He sighed. What do you mean by assets? I have a nickel in my pocket. Bring your mind around to the positive side, I said, and you have the most important asset you'll ever have. We'll work on that. Now let's take inventory of your skills. Sit down. We'll talk better. What did you do in the army? He had been a cook. Before going into the army, he had been a Fuller brush salesman. He was a good cook, I discovered, but obviously he had not been a good salesman. Still, he knew something about selling, and in talking to him, I discovered he still wanted to sell. At the outset, however, he had no belief he could ever become a good salesman. The memory of past failures inhibited him, and I had to help him break those self-inflicted mental blocks and see not what he had been, but what he could be. We talked for some time, and meanwhile, my mind was busily at work. My mind was not weakened by hunger and hopelessness. There had been a time when my mind had known as much despair as did his, but now I was filled with success consciousness. Questing about my uninhibited mind, remembered that special new kinds of cookware were now being developed. A new kind of cookware of great benefit to the housewife. A man who could think about cooking and even demonstrate, a man who could be made into a good salesman. And there we had the winning combination. Suppose you represented a company that makes a new kind of aluminum cookware, I said. This cookware offers many advantages. It should be seen in action, then it will practically sell itself. Any housewife, for a small consideration, say, some free pots or pans for her own use, should be glad to invite her neighbors in for a home cooked dinner. You cook that dinner with the special cookware, and after dinner, you take orders for complete match sets. If 20 ladies are present, I'm sure you could induce half of them to purchase. Some of these would be eager to run similar dinner parties in their own homes. The business will become self-perpetuating. Sounds okay, my young soldier friend replied. But where am I going to sleep meanwhile? And where am I going to eat? And where am I going to get a few clean shirts and a new suit? Not to mention the question of where am I going to get some money or credit to get started on? Such questions are typical of the mind which does not yet know itself, and so sums up all the obstacles rather than looking directly at the goal. Get yourself into the right frame of mind, I said, and you will either find what you need or find a way to do without and still achieve your goal. When your mind can truly picture a desired goal and feels success consciousness driving it toward that goal, you can win that goal. Let us put aside all other matters and investigate your state of mind. Actually, the young man was very close to having the desired positive state of mind. I waited till I was sure he had it. However, then I said he was a good risk, and I gave him the use of our guest room and his meals. I let him use my charge account at Marshall's Fields so he could be well dressed. I guaranteed his note for his first outfit of cookware. During his first week, he cleared nearly $100 in profit. The second week, he doubled that amount. In a little while, he began to train other men and women whom he managed. Most of all, he instilled in them the success consciousness, which now had full hold of his mind. And as they prospered, so did he. At the end of 4 years, the young man who had been so hungry and broke spirited was very far from being a millionaire. So very far from being a millionaire, was worth more than $4 million. Moreover, this newly keen and efficient mind was perfected a home demonstration selling plan, which now nets millions of dollars annually to a large corps of salespeople. All right, we're going to stop there. When the bells of heaven ring with joy, that's what we're going to pick up at. Man, tap in with your boy Chuck. We're trying to get everything right. You know, we got the mic going. I don't know if you can see it. We got the mic. I need to get a better camera and projector and all that type of stuff. But just work with me. You already know. Tap in.